Look out, y'all. Boxing fans, it's your boy Ashy Knuckles. Missing in action Jackson. You know me. But I guess I felt compelled to do a video on this travesty of a fight. Kell Brook versus Triple G. Gennady Triple G Golovkin. What can I say? It's a dumb fight. Two great fighters, mind you. We all know what Triple G brings to the table. He's hailed as the best thing since sliced bread, and with good reason. He's a hell of a fighter, great boxing ability, great punch in both hands, very strong at the weight of 160, and virtually dismantling everybody that they put in front of him. It's become expected when you dominate everybody that's in front of you. He is the middleweight champion as far as I'm concerned. When the lineal champs failed to negotiate a fight to meet him to declare who really is the champ, then by basically by submission or by avoidance, you basically forfeit your right to call yourself champion, especially when you fail to make defenses against middleweights who are in line to fight for that title. I mean, you can't hold the division hostage. We all know this. Part of being a champion is to defend. And if you don't defend against guys at the weight that you claim to be champion, then you can no longer call yourself a champion. So in my opinion, Gennady Triple G Golovkin is the champion and has been the champion at 160 pounds. Now, mind you, there are other challenges at 160 pounds. As a matter of fact, in my opinion, nobody at that weight can actually oppose him and give him a tough challenge. But being that as it may, there are still guys within the top 10 that are fighting for their opportunity to fight for a title. And since Canelo doesn't want to be the champion at 160 pounds, you know, I don't ask him to defend against those guys. You know, relinquish the title. I think he has. I think they actually stripped him because I think in an unprecedented time in boxing, the WBC is actually stripping a guy for not unifying. Can you imagine that? But because usually if there's a champion in the same division, that they are not even ranked in another division. They're completely forfeited their opportunity to be in another sanctioning organization's rankings. That's the way it has been for this latter part of the boxing era, and you know, that was an unprecedented move. And I don't shame the WBC for doing that, because they're doing what the fans are demanding. We want to know who is the champion in every division. Point blank period. This has been the boxing world has been saturated with titles for a long time, and at least this is a step in the right direction. Now, in saying that, Triple G, you know, since he is so dominant, he can at least defend against other challengers. He can try to make a fight with Danny Jacobs. He can try to make a fight with, you know, just other solid guys at that weight. And if nothing else fails, if all else fails, move up. I don't know why, you know, these guys feel compelled to hold a division hostage when nobody in that division is giving you a chance. And you can tell that only certain fighters get the okay to do that. But other fighters, they get hassled and harassed by the fans and media alike, that when they dominate everybody in their division, they force them to move up. And I can name countless examples, currently and historically, but I'll digress on that and continue with the topic at hand. Now, like I said, a travesty of fight that's taking place at this juncture is Triple G versus Kell Brook. What Kell Brook does bring to the table is that he is a big welterweight. He is skilled. He is a champion at that weight. He's strong. He's very, very fundamentally sound, and he has a decent punch in both hands. He has good power in both hands. You know, he can pretty much lay anybody down if he connects with timing and, of course, punch placement. And especially if a guy's being too aggressive, he can use their aggression against them, combination of their aggression and his timing and punch placement, knockout. It's easy. It's as simple as ABC. But, you know, for a long time, the fans have harassed, at least on this side of the pond, have, including myself, have harassed Kell Brook, at least from afar. You know, I respect all fighters, for not coming over across the pond to fight consistently. Yes, he did against Sean Porter in a great fight, in a dominating fight, a dominating victory in my opinion, even though I think he won it by points, by a couple of points or not. I thought it was a dominating fight. You know, Sean Porter did what he did. He did what he always does. He fight with a lot of heart and determination, and, you know, rugged, strong guy. But he lost, and that's the point. That's the thing. And I think for Kell Brook, the fights that were better for him were fights at his weight of 147 pounds. The welterweight division is stacked with opponents and other titleists to where you have to match these guys together to see who is the legit title holder, the legit champ at that weight. And still to this day, Kell Brook has neglected to do that. But can I hold it against him for this fight? No. He is daring to be great. He's jumping up 2 weights to fight a guy that absolutely nobody in the world seems like they want to face, except guys that are bigger than he. And, of course, some guys smaller than he that were willing to step up, like Arislandi Lara. So there are fights for Triple G as well, and he's not fighting these guys. Whatever you may say, boring, not lucrative, they're there. And they're legit fights, and true champions fight everybody, unless you are a guy who is a mega star, and anybody who you put on the ledger with you on the promotion with you, it doesn't matter, because you're on there, it's going to make a great fight. He's not at that level. Triple G's been on a pay-per-view. It was terrible in sales. So in order to make your name, you make your name by fighting legit guys. So, but, you know, I digress, man. The media thinks they know better than the fans, so fuck it. And you want to fight guys who don't deserve to be across the ring from you, do what you do. But all that hailing to be the pound-for-pound best in the world, I mean, he definitely is a pound-for-pound caliber fighter. But in order to me, to be ranked and hold your ranking, you got to at least fight guys within, around your weight, or above to consider yourself a pound-for-pound fighter. You do nothing when making a guy 2 weights below you come up in weight. And we're not talking about 1 or 2 pounds, 4 or 5 pounds. We're talking about 13 pounds below your fight weight. That, to me, that's ridiculous. I don't care what the skill level is. That is ridiculous, unless you're just tuning up. And, you know, if you're tuning up and you can make some money off of it, you know, I don't know, whatever. And the only way to me it would make sense is if a guy like Triple G also came from one of those low weights too. You know what I'm saying? If he came from one of them low weights as well, maybe. But, or if the guy like Kell Brook, if Kell Brook dominated 147, went to 154, proved himself at that weight, and then went up to 160 and fought for title, then you can't knock him because he's proven he belonged at that weight. Kind of like Tito. You know, he was started at 140, became champion at welterweight, became champion, unified champion at 47 and 54. There was nothing else for him to do but go up in weight and try his best against Joppy and Bernard Hopkins, to which he beat Joppy, but he ultimately lost to Bernard Hopkins. So, you know, there are shades of gray in that mind, in that frame of thinking. But this immediate jump to 160 when you haven't proven that you're the best at 147, to me, it's just bullshit. The fight should not happen. You know, you're not going to prove anything by dismantling Kell Brook. I mean, weight divisions matter. I mean, I can't stress that enough. If you watch any of my old videos from back in the Gap, I try to emphasize that for the folks that don't know. You know what I'm saying? That have not been around the sport outside of just watching fights on television. You don't know any fighters, never been to any gyms, never talked to anybody. You know what I'm saying? Never competed. And I try to give y'all, I try to bring y'all up to speed with that. You know, for me being around the sport for a lot of fucking years, not just this YouTube shit, but just being in the gyms, around fighters, knowing fighters for my friend. Hell, I live by damn fighters. You know, I got a cousin that fought amateur. You know what I'm saying? Me, this wasn't necessarily my sport, You know what I'm saying? But I've always loved the sport, and I've followed the sport for years. I've covered the sport, you know what I'm saying? And I watch it on TV like everybody else. And I'm just telling you from a fighter's perspective, from what I've been told over the years, the divisions matter. The fighters know, the media thinks they know, but the fighters know. And one thing, I got even an amateur guy named Gary. He was a good amateur out in Louisiana. He stays out here now, and he fought around the featherweight division. And you know, he went pro and he won. He won his first few fights, if I'm not mistaken. It may have been just one fight, one or two fights, but that second fight he won. When he went back to the dressing room, he didn't even realize he fought. That's the effects that this fight game has on a human body. You know, the human body was not meant to endure this type of punishment. You know, it just so happens the sport was created, a way for guys to compete and make money, and that's what we have in today's sport. We have boxing, very brutal sport. It's not easy. You don't play boxing. But even still, me, Gary, and friends, we can be walking through HEB or Kroger's or whatever supermarkets you guys have where you live, and this guy got to take a knee sometimes when we hit a aisle. You know, literally, and he haven't fought in years. He don't fight amateur no more. He ain't a pro no more. He gave it up after that fight, and he just a regular commoner like us now. But he still to this day, we can just be out somewhere, and he got to actually take a knee because he get those effects from boxing still. You know what I'm saying? And he never jumped up in weight, and he never had a big pro career. But that just gives you a inside look on what the effects of boxing does. That's why it's you got to be very careful when you just jump up in weight. Extra weight, a heavy punch comes with extra weight. Guys at the bigger weight classes, they punch decisively harder. You know, you're taking a punch from a decisively bigger man. I've said that for years. I tried to hammer that issue so you understand it. So going up against Triple G is not going to be easy. In fact, it's going to be very difficult, and he will be knocked the fuck out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Triple G spars with guys substantially bigger than he, and they always say this guy punches like a mule for guys that fight at their weight class. So what do you think he's doing at 160? That's why nobody at 160 has been able to endure the punishment that comes along with fighting Gennady Triple G Golovkin. And I wish you guys understand that. You know, like I said, I've touched on a pound for pound issue. You know, pound for pound from its conception was based on what ifs and hypotheticals. All things combined, if a guy can be smaller or this guy can be bigger, how would he compete against everybody in every weight division? That's pretty much how the concept of pound for pound came about. Sugar Ray Robinson just very dominant, so they figure if he could magically be at the same weight as anybody in any division, how would he fare? And that's where the pound for pound conception comes in at. But me, the way I view pound for pound, because I'm not gonna say my view of it is better, but I'm an old school guy. I believe in all the old adages. You know, the good big man beats the good little man. And if that's not so, then you got to show me. You know what I'm saying? That's why usually when it's a big man facing a good little man, I'm always side with the big man, because too many times in the history of the sport, we've seen a guy who's smaller go up in weight and get his ass destroyed. You know, it's very rare that guys go up in weight and can compete and win. You know, I know we've seen it a lot in this current era and maybe the era before this, but in the history of boxing, most guys who go up in weight, they at least take on a loss or two before they start winning, because you have to develop yourself to be able to fight at the fight weight you're going to campaign at, because your body is just not meant to endure or carry the additional pounds of fight weight, not walk around weight. This is fight weight. Countless examples. Hearns versus Hagler. The big man destroyed the good little man. What else? Emil Griffith versus Reuben Carter. The good big man destroyed the good little man. Now, Emil Griffith would go on to become the undisputed middleweight champion of the world too, and he was the undisputed welterweight champion of the world. But when he went up in weight and fought Reuben Carter, he got his ass beat. Let's get some recent examples. Let's think of Rest in peace, Diego Corrales, when he jumped up 2 weight classes and fought Joshua Clottey. Got his ass whooped. That was his first fight at welterweight, and he got whooped for his troubles. Let's look at Nonito Donaire going up against, what's the Jamaican cat? Yardy. Damn. Nicholas Walters got his ass beat. You know what I'm saying? It's not an easy thing to make yourself take on those additional pounds of fight weight and compete against the best at the weight you're going to campaign at. It's not an easy thing. And, you know, mind you, for Nonito Donaire, the jump in weight wasn't even that much. You know what I'm saying? Now we're talking about Kell Brook going up 13 pounds of fight weight. And that brings me into my current thought process right now. The 30-day weigh-in came about, and Kell Brook is decisively bigger, at least weight-wise, than his opponent. And I'll touch on that. Kell Brook is a welterweight, and he's fighting at 13 pounds heavier than welterweight. That's why he put on the additional pounds of muscle mass and just added weight, and he's going to hold that weight as long as he can before he shreds down the 16 pounds necessary to make weight at 160. There's a method behind it, because if he did not put on the additional weight, by the time he got he would have seen 160 well before it's time to fight, and he would basically have to continue to eat and have a high calorie, high fat, high protein, high everything, high carbohydrate diet just to keep the weight on him. Because when he's enduring the hardships of training camp, he would have melted way below 160. You know what I'm saying? Because his body is not meant. Anyway, yeah, sorry about that. His body is not accustomed to endure the additional pounds of fight weight when it's time to compete on the night of the fight. He'll be entirely too small. You know what I'm saying? This is probably the way he's doing it is probably the best way of doing it. Being as heavy as possible, at least as far as muscle mass, and train and train and train. And then when it's almost close to the weeks preceding the fight, that's when you begin your method of melting down those 16 pounds. Believe me, he gonna make weight with ease. He gonna make weight with ease. Everybody's saying this is not a good idea. No, it is a good idea. This is the only chance he's got. Because if he don't do it this way, there's no way he's gonna compete whatsoever on fight night. There's no way he can make 160 pounds and stay at that weight, you know, and then at least be a decent size on fight night if he doesn't put on the pounds of muscle mass. Because if he did not do that, he would have melted past 160, hit 154, and been on his way to meeting welterweight. If he would have just did a conventional training camp without muscle training and strength training, there's no way he would have been able to fight at that weight, because his body is not accustomed to beating off that weight till we get to a saturated point of 160 pounds where you can't go too much further below that weight and actually have actually make that weight comfortably to compete against substantially bigger guys. I hope I said that in a way you guys can understand it, because it is the truth. That is the truth. This is the only way. Now, you have guys like Mayweather in the past, when he go up in weight, knowing that his body, his frame could not hold the additional pounds of fight weight. This dude would be in training camp eating Krispy Kreme and fried chicken, fried fish, and hamburgers. Literally no fighter in the history of boxing has had that in their diet when it's time to train for a fight. That is the most unconventional way to hold fight weight when you're going up against a substantially bigger guy. And, you know, that basically gives you an insight on the type of fighter this guy is. Because ain't no way he was supposed to be at some of those weights he was at. He's a little dude. I don't care what nobody say. That is a small dude. I've been around all types of fighters. I know what welterweights look like. He ain't never been in the latter stages of his career. He was a welterweight. But earlier stages of fighting at higher weights, no way. Absolutely not. And if you go and watch old fights from when he fought at welterweight, like when he fought Charmaine Mitchell or something like that, and then fast forward to when he fought guys like Marcos Maidana, look at the difference in his body on fight night. And you can see it clear as day. Look at when he fought Baldomir and compare that to when he fought Maidana. and you can see a clear cut difference in the size of that guy. It took time. But since he didn't have the time to thoroughly develop at that weight, this dude was eating a high calorie, high fat, high protein, high everything diet just so he could sustain the weight while being in training camp. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I be trying to tell you guys. This is the only way for Kell Brook to do it, unless he does that. Eat fucking donuts and chicken and shit. And most fighters won't do that. You never seen anybody in the history of the sport do that. And I'm talking about all the greats. They've never done that. You know what I'm saying? Just to hold the weight while in training camp in order to fight at a much bigger weight. Now, in terms of Triple G, he's a substantially big middleweight. In fact, he reminds me more of a throwback fighter than anything, because he's not a guy that can blow up in weight and then melt down and make 160 comfortably. He's not of that ilk. He probably does not even belong at that weight. So the guy keeps himself in shape, and he probably doesn't weigh anything, it probably doesn't weigh more than 8 or 9 pounds above his fight weight when he's not fighting. Very disciplined, kind of the way Bernard Hopkins did it. And it's because they had to do that. And actually, that's how old school guys did it. You know what I'm saying? Because if he blow up in weight, being of his frame and his size and his, how big he is, he probably wouldn't even be able to make 60. But with a diet and consistent exercise and keeping himself not too far around fight weight, he'll always be able to make 160. That's the discipline of a fighter, especially of the old school fighters. But if he did, like, let's say Ricky Hatton did, and blow up in weight, or like many other fighters, go up in weight when they're not fighting and then melt down to get to fight weight so they can have an advantage of size and strength on fight night, he wouldn't be able to make 160. Just like Bernard Hopkins. If he did that, he would have never been able to consistently make 160 pounds. And that's why you see the difference at the 30-day weigh-in preceding the fight, that Triple G is not too far away from fight weight and Kell Brook is way bigger than what he needs to be. It's two different scenarios. One guy is a legit middleweight and has been at that weight, and one guy that haven't even fought at 54. At least if he has, it hasn't been in recent years. And he does not belong at 160, at least not yet. And this is the only way he's going to be able to hit 160 and be able to compete with a substantially bigger guy on that night. If he did not put on the additional muscle mass or high calorie diet, high protein diet to keep himself big preceding the 2 or 3 weeks to fight night, there is no possibility. He would have already passed 160 pounds. He'd probably be in the 50s right now, or on his way to the 147 pounds. And to that, he would have absolutely no chance in hell. At least this will give him somewhat of a chance, because he'll be somewhat of a middleweight size on fight night. And it still be to no avail. Triple G is going to dominate him. But that's why you see what you see. And that's why they have absolutely no worries going into the fight. It's everybody else that's saying, oh, this is no bueno. This is no good. This is the only chance he got. So I hope you guys understand that. It's your boy Ash. And you got a comment, leave it.